Hello, everybody. This is Glenda with Shaking Hands Art, as you will see tonight, with Fralins and Friends. We're going to cover the story of Jesus explaining to the disciples who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Now, it wasn't in this case, but later on, in another case, the mother of the sons of Zebedee, there's two sons of Zebedee who are disciples, and their mother comes and she asks Jesus if her sons can sit one on the left and one on the right side of him in the kingdom of heaven. And Jesus rebukes her and says that's not for him to say, that is already set by God the Father. So I don't know if the brothers knew this. I have no idea. But if they didn't, I imagine they were probably hanging their heads and like, oh, Mom, about that time. I don't know. I am painting right now. This is another case where they talk about who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And I'm here and there, I'm kind of editing and then wishing I hadn't on some of these things that I'm painting. I am only putting 3 of the 12 disciples in here because that's a lot to paint, and I have enough trouble with human figures as it is. So I'm just going to do 3 of the 12. They can represent the rest of them. And so right now I'm just giving them all the same color because it just, that means, well, these 3 are the disciples because they're already wearing this color. I color code. But I'm not real happy with some of the things. We'll discuss that later. But in this particular scene, this is what's happening. It'll take a lot longer to paint it than it will for me to read this to you. The greatest in the kingdom of heaven. This is Matthew chapter 18, starting with verse 1 through 5. At that time, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Who then is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" He called a little child to him and placed the child among them. And he said, "Truly, I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me." Now, that's explained by different people in probably as many different ways, but they can't become children again. They know that. He knows that. What he's talking about is the mindset of a child. They need to be teachable. They need to be willing to learn and follow Christ's example. And that's what they need to do as children of God. They have got to be teachable, and they have to be accepting. A child is generally very accepting. And so that's kind of what they need to be as far as Jesus is concerned. They need to accept him without any question. Because he's already shown them who he is. Peter has declared who he is. And so they do know But yet, Peter knows he's the Messiah, but he still doesn't understand his death, because prior to that, Jesus had been explaining his death to them that is still yet to come. And Peter says, "Oh, no, no, we'll never let that happen to you." Well, Jesus kind of says, "Get thee behind me, Satan," because what he's telling him is, this is something I have to do. And he doesn't want to be tempted. He doesn't want Peter to get blinded by his grief or whatever. And tell you the truth, I don't know but he wants Peter to understand that this is necessary, that what he is doing is a necessity. It's necessary for him to die so that we may live. And he explains that to Peter. That means that we may live in the kingdom of heaven with him. And, okay, before long here, I'm going to realize those headdresses are absolutely not necessary, because they didn't wear any. Jesus didn't wear one, and I doubt very much that they wore them. I know the Pharisees did, or at least they tried to look very regal, and they pretty well dressed themselves up. But I don't think the disciples even wore any kind of headdress. They may have, if it was sandy or something, or I'm sure they had something to put over their heads. But anyway, I decided to make it hair, and I don't do a great job of it. But I hope I'm explaining this well. Please do go and look it up on your own, because this is very important story that Jesus. This is not about who gets into heaven. This is about who's greatest in heaven, and the idea of being the greatest in heaven isn't the point. The greatest in heaven is God. Being the greatest in heaven, just being in heaven is a great honor. You don't need to wish for having the highest seat or having the closest seat, because that's not ours to decide. And they're thinking in earthly terms when they think that. They're thinking in earthly terms, not in heavenly terms. Jesus even explains to them that even though he is the Messiah, and that he hasn't come to be served, he has come so that he may serve. And he's trying to help them to understand in the best way he can that by dying for us, by letting himself be crucified, that he is serving that sacrifice, the only perfect sacrifice that can be made, so that we can live with him in the kingdom of heaven, if we accept him. So that is what is his big deal. And yeah, I got a little frustrated with myself. I just said, okay, I'm just going to go paint the green on the tree and come back to the other later. I am having a little trouble with having it up on the easel. Not with the bigger stuff so much, it's with the smaller parts. So I'm gonna do a little bit of editing here, I think. In order to come to a good understanding of the way Jesus taught and to understand what he taught is to go back through the parables and the events. And then when you move on from there, you'll be ready to take in, the meat of, we call it the meat of the word, or it's like when you're studying math, you're not going to read the preface and understand the whole book. And I guess what I'm giving you is just a little bit of a preface here. Okay, this is when I realized that they didn't need those hood things. They just needed hair. And I didn't do such a good job with that. So maybe I should have just left the hair scarves on. I mean, they probably do use them sometimes. But getting back to where I was, it's in all of our interest for ourselves, for each person personally, to read the word so that the Holy Spirit can speak to their heart and help them understand. And because if somebody tells you, oh, you just take what I say, you don't go read it, we're not Jesus. We're not the Messiah. You do need to go and study it for yourself because we're not perfect and we can make mistakes. But it's just so much going on in this particular time. And Jesus has now predicted his death 3 times. And so we are getting close. In fact, this next Sunday is Palm Sunday. That's when he rides in on a donkey colt and is praised by people all along with. Okay, and then coming up on Friday, what we call Good Friday, that's when he was crucified. The Pharisees drummed up a bunch of anger against him and really got everything wound up and asked Pilate to take his life. And the only thing they would handle is a crucifixion. That's all they wanted. So then, and this, I'm talking the Pharisees, not the Jewish people in general. I'm talking about the Pharisees. And then the Pilate, who is the Roman judge kind of thing, he tells them, the Roman soldiers, to go ahead and crucify him. But this is all Jesus' plan. It's God's plan. And then Easter, he rises up from the dead. And he was dead. Every bit of blood was out of his body because he was pierced through. Well, guys, I'm sorry to say it's not getting finished tonight. It looks very, very... looks like they stole Fred Flintstone's shirts. And I need to let the green eyes dry so I can put the black pupils in. And I have gone over and over things so many times trying to fix them. There is no fixing them. They're just done. I figure if I put enough coats on, that eventually it'll cover that up. And then sometime I'll be able to put some arms in these guys. So this is it. Okay, well, so much for the fun and laughter. Yes, we will fix this. But for tonight, I just want to say I love you. Please take care of yourselves. Be kind. And if you get a chance to smile and wave at somebody, please do. and I'll be back to finish this, and we'll see if I can make something out of it. Have a good night, and we'll probably see you tomorrow to finish this thing.